work of Betsy Ross, American flag, suffragist flag, Union flag, Gadsden flag, and the flag of the state of Michigan are key physical symbols of American history that should be studied and remembered by each American citizen. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council does hereby proclaim September 11th through 17th, 2011 as Michigan Patriot Week in the city of Troy, Michigan, symbolically beginning this celebration on September 11th and concluding on Constitutional Day. Be it further resolved, the City Council calls upon the citizens, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and schools in Troy to recognize and participate in this extended holiday by honoring and celebrating the first principles, key historical figures, founding documents, and symbols of America, so that we may offer the reverence that is due to our free republic. Presented this 12th day of September 2011, signed by myself and all members of council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna? Yes.
The Rotary Club of Troy is a part of the Rotary clubs in the area that have taken it upon ourselves to try to kick off the concept of Patriot Week. This is only really its second year, and it was founded by a judge here in Oakland County, as a matter of fact. The concept is to not just end with the reverence that we showed yesterday with 9/11, but to do a lot more in terms of educating people on our civic treasures that we have in this country that makes this such an amazing place to live. The Rotary Club over the last 27 years has sponsored a essay for the middle schools where over 50,000 children now in Troy have written an essay as to why I'm proud to be an American. That is something that we started 27 years ago, and we intend to, over 2,500 kids this year did that essay. It's not just this week, but with this week we'd like to bring focus to the opportunity and encourage everyone to take a little bit of time to read a little bit about the Constitution, to read a little bit about the Founding Fathers, to read a little, and bring that back to us, the amazing civic heritage that we have. Thank you.
Okay. One thing he forgot. We're inviting everyone to lunch on Wednesday at noon. We have a speaker who is a world he's
actually he's a Desert Storm veteran. It's been back twice since then as well.
And we're especially inviting veterans to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, our next presentation is rather special for the city because we recognize couples when they have special anniversaries of significant years. And so I'd like to call forward James and Betty Savage on the occasion of their 60th anniversary. And I think that you will enjoy. How are you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Whereas James and Betty Savage were united in marriage on September 15th, 1951 at St. Paul's Anglican Church in Warwick, England, and are now celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary surrounded by children and grandchildren. And whereas James and Betty are blessed with children Linda and David, born in Leamington, England, and whereas in 1956, James and Betty moved to London, Ontario, and in 1965 moved to Royal Oak, where they raised Linda and David, who both graduated from Dondero High School. And in 1976, they moved to their present residence in Troy. Whereas James worked as a tool and die machinist in service shops around the Detroit area and retired in 1993. Today, James and Betty love social ballroom dancing and have been very active in the area British social organizations since 1966. And whereas the city of Troy has been a special place for the Savage family, Son David worked for Troy's Department of Public Works while studying at Lawrence Tech, and their daughter-in-law Christine works at the Troy Community Center. Whereas James and Betty's 4 grandsons, Justin, James, Brian, and Alexander, all attended Waddles Elementary School. Grandson James graduated from Troy High School, and grandsons Alexander and Brian graduated from Athens High School. Grandson James worked for Troy Parks and Recreation Department while in high school, and Brian worked 3 summers in the Public Works Department, Streets Division. Whereas James and Betty have earned the respect of all with whom they've come into contact and the love and affection of their children, grandchildren, and a host of wonderful friends. Now, therefore, be it resolved that James and Betty are worthy of this expression of our sincere congratulations on this happy occasion of their 60th wedding anniversary. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council and all Troy residents extend best wishes to James and Betty for many more years of good health and happiness together. Presented this 12th day of September 2011, signed by myself and all the council members. And I'm assuming that besides him taking you out to dinner, he's also going to take you dancing. I don't know if there's any ballroom dancing places around. There used to be, but you always come and speak about the senior dancing that occurs.
In Troy, we have once a year.
Right.
Troy High School.
Yes. And when does that occur?
That's in April.
In April. Well, they should put it closer to your anniversary.
Yes. Yeah, that's not in my control. Yes.
Uh-huh. Anyway, so congratulations to both of you. Thank you so much. Sure. I would say, absolutely.
About my family. It would be kind of remiss of me if I were here and not say anything.
I recognize some of them, too.
And we won't be staying for the meeting, so maybe I could take my 3 minutes now.
Okay.
Yeah, I especially wanted to take this opportunity because it's being televised, and our grandson and his family who are in North Carolina are hopefully going to be watching us on the internet.
Good.
So I got to look good.
Yeah.
So, and you know, at 60 years, I just happen to have a few notes. At 60 years married, you know, people say, well, is there a secret? Yeah, there's a couple of secrets to surviving 60 years. One is way back, you learn to say, yes, dear. And that covers everything. Whatever the problem is, yes, dear. Problem solved. Yeah, another thing is we like to go out 2 times a week for a very romantic evening. Betty goes Tuesdays and I go Thursdays. So, oh, if you're timing me, you can buzz me when I Yeah, but there are, I would like to say a few things about my family, and as actually I met Betty at a dance, and as a dancer I didn't do too well. I say I met her at a dance because back then you didn't take a girl to a dance. You go to meet girls at a dance. That's why you go to the dance. And then it was about 3 years later, after I got out of the Air Force, we were married. So we were kind of teenagers when we met. And then in 1956, with Linda and baby David, we were kind of so excited about moving to the new world that I don't think we realized that we were leaving our home behind and everything that was very familiar to us. And it took a while to sink in, you know, that this had happened. And when our parents were alive, home was where they were. And after they were gone, home was a kind of a very vague place because we didn't know what we called home until we bought our house in Troy, and then we knew that we were home. The last time we visited England, we visited, as we always do, the village where Betty grew up. There's only about 14 houses in the village. And at that time, the church was holding its flower festival. We had tea in the village hall, which used to be a one-room school. And it was very special to us when Betty was able to talk to daughters of people that she and her 2 sisters and 2 brothers attended at that school. And incidentally, at one point, all of them, what was it, 5? Were all in the school at one time. During a previous visit, we visited my old elementary school, which I think is probably about 170 years old now, the building. And the headmistress took us on a tour of the school. Nothing had changed. The air raid shelter was still under the playground. It was locked up and kind of flooded, but that was where, when we were not wearing our gas masks, we were singing. And at that time, I was remembering the neighborhood kids that I grew up with. And at that time, at that point, it did feel like home. And then recently, in Detroit, they demolished the old Cass Tech building. And the former students, some of them were crying because their history was disappearing. And that made me realize how important school is in a person's history, particularly the neighborhood elementary school, because this is where you go, everything is familiar. The kids, they're the neighborhood kids, and these are the kids you grow up with, and these are things you remember. And as we said in the proclamation, our 4 grandsons all attended Wallace School. At one point, 3 of them were in the school at the same time. And I would like to think that one day they would take their kids and show them the school and tell them about the carefree days under the watchful eye of Dr. Garrett, who I think is a wonderful person, and her excellent staff. And hopefully, for many years to come, Troy will be hometown to the Savage family. And I thank you. Oh, yeah. I would like to introduce our daughter-in-law, Christine. Our son is out of town. And her son, James, and Alexander. And James's new wife, Rochelle. And they all live in the area. In fact, Christine and the family live next door to us. So Troy is home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Congratulations, Betty.
Now, I think that just proves we really do have some very wonderful people in Troy that have wonderful stories to tell.
Congratulations.
And so I think this was a good opportunity, not only for them, but also for us.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Very nice. Yeah.
Special way to start our meeting. Our next section is public comment, and so we'll begin, and I'll call those individuals that signed up to speak, and the time will be the 5 minutes as per usual. So the first person who signed up is Mr. Peters. Richard Peters.
Good evening, folks, and
Good evening.
council, mayor. I got a couple things tonight. The first is, I know we've been considering the road issue here, and that's why I think the Congress could pass that transportation bill. I think that would go a long way to helping our city, getting our thing there. Also, I want to talk about labor law a little bit tonight. I think, now this is just like a balloon I'm floating out, is that maybe they should allow like small businesses to bid on, I don't know if this is the law or not, but allow small businesses to, when they bid on contracts, on labor contracts with labor workers, that they shouldn't have to join the union, but they should hire the union folks on those contracts, who work on those contracts. I think, I don't know, I think that might be a better way of, maybe broadening things out as opposed to maybe, I guess we might call these closed loop things. Also, I would urge that the Attorney General look into these banks as far as investment firms or investment bankers or these brokerage firms to see if they're colluding to spike up this price of stocks, particularly in the area of oil, to cover their losses in the housing industry. It looks funny to a lot of us folks why the fuel is so high, and yet that doesn't make a lot of so. Also, I'd like to also hope that we'd start getting our country more energy independent again. Maybe cogeneration, waste energy, possibly coal, biofuels, and maybe water. And maybe in the city here, we could incrementally put solar panels on some of our building, although it has to be up to you, and I do not know what the budget is. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much about it. We also had a somber, so. Well, thank you very much, and God bless America after the summer.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Our next person that's signed up to speak is Dave Henderson.
Good evening.
Thank
you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Manager. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about this $2.6 million windfall that we have that we're going to be discussing, I think, at length tonight. And my only real point is to just point out that Mr. Fleming, Mr. Halverlich, and several other people in the community saw this windfall coming months and months ago and have produced documents and information to the public so that they could review it and know what they were voting on with this library millage that was hit. But the irony of that is that the information came out from the city after the election was over, so that the people of Troy couldn't use that information to try to decide what they were going to do at the voting booth. So I just think that's a big disservice to the community. We all knew that money was hanging out there somewhere. The library millage, as I recall, was about gained $3.1 million to the budget for the library. The total that we're talking about is $2.6 million, and I've noticed today that there's a big race on to try to eat up all of that as quickly as we can. So those things are going to be discussed tonight, and I just encourage you, before you haphazardly run through and approve everything that's going to be thrown at us to try to gobble up this $2.6 million in savings, that you maybe postpone it, talk about it, have more meetings on it, and wait, ride the storm out. We're not through this economic crisis yet, so don't be hasty with any decisions that you make tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be addressing in public response to public comment. There's some more information that should be provided. Next, we'll hear from Cheryl Kaszubski. Tom and Cheryl. Now, Cheryl signed up, Tom, but not you, so I don't know. Come on.
Tell who's boss in our house.
Isn't that what James Savage said?
That's
right. You should say yes,
dear. That's right. Mayor, members of council, we're here to tell you about something that's good that's happening in the city this week. About 14 months ago, a little over that, I was in a parking lot, and I got a phone call from someone said, boy, I have someone that really wants to talk to you, and they're looking to do a community festival. Do you want to get together with them and see what's going to happen? I says, that's great. So I made that phone call from one parking lot, and the other gentleman was in another. And that happened to be Pastor Scott from Zion Christian Church. And we talked for about 10 or 15 minutes and decided we'd get together and see if we could bring back the community festival, since it had been canceled, and we both wanted to see it come back. So that was about 14 months ago. I got on the phone the very next day and started making phone calls, and we got together a committee within 6 or 7 days, 42 members strong. We have over 300 volunteers have come forward to help us. We have 17 corporate partners. Part of the festival, which is going to be, we have free parking for over 2,500 cars on pavement. We have free shuttles, and on the site itself at Zion Christian Church, we have a little mini train that's going to ride around the church, picking up people from the back of the parking lot. We have a professional parking company that's coming in to make sure that there's no problems and everybody can park correctly. We've beefed up security to make sure that this is a family-friendly festival, that the people can come and feel safe. So we have security cameras all over the site. We have 6 kiosks through the site. They're flat-screen TVs. And on those kiosks, we're going to tell about our sponsors and all the activities happening. And we will also have the National Weather Service put out weather bulletins and give the weather that's up to date. And now I'll let Cheryl tell you about the fun part.
As in past years, Arnold Amusement is back again this year. He's brought 25 rides to the festival. We will have, in addition to that, putt-putt golf and laser tag. We have community and business booths again this year. 4 days worth of free entertainment, so the stage has activities going on it from the start on Friday through closing on Sunday. Youth parent contests are back again, but they're moved to Sunday afternoon. Talent shows, as always, are Saturday afternoon. We have a children's corner for our youngest residents of the community, which will have games and entertainment scaled for them. The Kiwanis Club on Sunday is going to do a pancake breakfast from 8:30 to 12:30. We have many food vendors that have come out this year with a wide variety of food, from turkey drumsticks, beef barbecue, chicken on a stick, the normal Polish and Italian sausage. Jet's Pizza will be there, Noodles and Company, Stroh's Ice Cream, and of course we can't forget the elephant ears and the popcorn, cotton candy, and corn dogs that you always have at a festival. And we have special ride prices this weekend. On Thursday is the 10 for 10 rides for $10. And there's coupons all over the city that if you pick up and bring, you'll get the special ride price on Thursday. And if you can't find a coupon around the city, pick up a Somerset Gazette. They are in there. And also you can go online to the festival website, which is www.troyfamilydays.com, and you can download one. Friday ride bracelet is $20. And that is for all the hours of the festival. Saturday, the ride bracelet's $25, and on Sunday, it's $20. The festival's open Thursday from 4 to 9 p.m. On Friday, open from 4 to 11 p.m. On Saturday, from 11 to 11 p.m. And on Sunday, from 1 o'clock until 9. And I don't want to forget to mention fireworks are Saturday night at 9 o'clock with the rain date on Saturday, but I don't see any rain or Sunday, and I don't see any rain in the forecast. So we would like to welcome and invite the entire community to come out and enjoy Troy Family Days.
Thank you.
We have included a program that, the prototype of the program that, because it wasn't printed yet, and some free passes for members of City Council.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to hear from Bruce Bloomingdale, and Bruce, you're going to have a hard time following that act. So, but of course, you're following the Savages' 60th anniversary, so anything after that will be anticlimactic.
We have times in our lives where we remember exactly where we're at, and I have several of them. But tonight, I want to share a couple thoughts in regard to the events in our country 10 years ago in a day. I remember where I was at. I was standing in my living room with my 1 year, 1 month grandson. And we don't turn the television on when he's there, but my wife called and said, turn it on. And as I stood there watching the first tower burn and watched the plane run into the second tower and then watched the horrific footage that transpired that I had to turn his face from that, it was hard to watch. So I'm reminded of the first responders, as we call them now, the firemen, the policemen, the EMTs, and many others that rushed to New York to that site, including hundreds of ironworkers, people I'd worked with. They rushed there to help save lives and do what they could. And many lost their lives in that effort. Others sacrificed their health to some degree by being there. But while I remember those guys, my next thought went to our own police officers and firemen, the people that work for us. They have put their selves in harm's way to protect our person and our property. And they've also contributed to the city's financial stability by accepting the pay reductions that they did recently, which amounted to thousands of dollars for each of them. I truly appreciate these guys and the city and the employees of our city who serve us so well. And I want to take this opportunity to simply say thank you. I'm not alone in appreciating who you are and what you do for us. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Mary Ann Bernardi. Mrs. Bernardi.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. May I ask a question before you
yes,
start?
Yes, and feel free to adjust the, there. Go ahead.
Just before you start this timer, could I just ask a quick question about the previous Troy Days discussion?
Go ahead, start, yes.
Okay, I read an article in the Troy Times saying that it was canceled for security reasons, and I'm just so confused what is happening. What was that article about?
In the Troy Times, I don't know what article you were referring to. Yeah, it was back 10 years ago. Yes.
Oh, they were reporting.
Yes.
Looking back.
They were doing.
Oh, I read it as
an article regarding
because there were these
things
alerts
that happened 10 years ago.
Okay, we had some alerts this year, and I thought that was what they were responding to.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. And I wanted to clarify because I thought maybe other people were. Usually you're not the only one if you have a question. So hopefully. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to talk about snow days, or the snow removal that I believe you'll be talking about tonight. Last winter, Troy had the misfortune of becoming notorious for its failure to provide roads that were even close to being passable. All the surrounding communities exceeded Troy in providing safe roads. And Troy, which had been #1 in snow removal, was now, in one season, at the bottom of the heap. There is frequently talk at the council table about wanting to attract businesses to Troy, often with expensive strategies that would involve paying for travel outside of the county and even outside of the country. But it is difficult to understand why taxpayers should have to pay for such extreme measures while at the same time businesses are being thwarted in Troy by impassable roads. Troy's roads were the topic of discussion in my dentist office waiting room in Royal Oak last winter. I didn't disclose that I was from Troy, and I just listened. I suspect this conversation may have been going on in other venues throughout the region. The people were saying that they were avoiding going through Troy whenever they could. And I myself tried to obtain whatever I needed for our family when I was outside of Troy to avoid having to drive in Troy. And that was a complete departure from my usual custom of obtaining whatever we need for our family from the businesses in Troy. How can this be good for Troy business? We have finally found something upon which both residents and businesses should agree, and that is that we need to return to our previous standard of providing safe roads. Not only should both local and county roads be cleared on our prior timetable, but the idea of clearing only 2 tracks on a road should be soundly rejected. Clearing only 2 tracks is almost completely useless. Within an hour, snow and ice is tracked right back onto the tracks by tires and wind. Cars cannot maintain their tires on 2 tracks. Last winter, I sat on a side street to observe if the tires of the cars going by on a main street that had only 2 tracks cleared actually stayed in the tracks. And what I saw was that very seldom were they. Most of the time, the tires were not on the tracks. Most of the time, they were outside of the tracks. In fact, it didn't really matter much, since when I went onto that road to look at what it looked like, the entire road was pretty much ice-clad, including the tracks, because of that overflow and bringing the ice back onto the tracks. And to me, it defies all logic to clear only 2 tracks. I am amazed that this was ever approved to begin with, but now that we have seen what a dismal failure it was, I urge you to stop this ineffective and dangerous policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Next, we're going to hear from Ed Graysack.
I grew up in Detroit. They didn't plow any streets in Detroit. There were only 2 ruts down the road. That was in the 60s. And I went to Cass Tech, too, and he was right. They did tear that down. I heard Mr. Savage was going to take his wife to Chicago, but the train station wasn't complete, so he decided to change his mind. But it's supposed to be laughing. It's a laugh. Should get a laugh applause thing. First, I'd like to take a moment to honor the men and women and the children who were murdered on 9/11. And we can't forget the police, firemen, and other first responders that gave their lives that morning. I'd also like to honor the military, men and women who have died serving this great nation, and those who are presently serving and protecting our freedom. America needs to wake up and stop this PC attitude and realize that we have an enemy, and we must realize who that enemy is. I'd also like to say we need to honor, respect, and restore the Constitution of the United States. And that can get us into the Patriot Week. If you go to patriotweek.org, there's a whole series of stuff that's going on this week also. And then the rest of this I was going to get into again about what I've been talking the last... I haven't been coming to many meetings. This is probably my 4th meeting. It started with the tax. Of course, it's been going on for a long time here now too, I guess. But that tax increase... And I wanted to say, you know, that the 10% 401k, you know, that you said that's a norm. And I guess last time I was here, I tried to address that again, but that's not a norm. The norm is 2% in the private sector. In the public sector, it might be 10%. And that's where we need to start cutting. We need to start cutting in the public sector because we don't have the money. And all you guys want to do is raise taxes. There's no money, but the first thing you think about is raising taxes. And now we find there's a windfall. So a lot of this stuff... There's a windfall, so are we going to get the money back then? Are we going to rescind that tax? That's what I wanted to do last time. And so maybe now I can get my waiver. You know, and you mentioned that there is a local board of review. Well, I've been through the board review. I know the process. I've done it. And I did get the tax reduced when I did go to the local board of review. And I was so happy. Me and my wife, we went to Joe Cool's. We're high-fiving. We had a big celebration. And then I find out that unless the assessed value reaches the taxable value, unless those two lines cross, you don't get a tax. You don't get a tax break. So my taxes ended up going up anyway. And here I was celebrating all this, and my taxes still went up. So now I have all this. I thought I was going to get a tax break, but I had all this. I didn't have the money now to spend. And our costs are going up. Like Mary, like you said, our costs are going up. Gas prices and everything. Gas still goes up. They're not doing anything about it in Washington. I was on the phone today with Gary Peters, with his office. I can't get a hold of Gary Peters. He won't talk to me. But he's going to vote for the stimulus package. I found out today. Another $450 billion stimulus package. Where's the $850 billion stimulus package? What did that do? That didn't do anything. Where are the jobs? So, and then also, Mary, you mentioned last time there was, I mentioned there were 6 ballot proposals for the library, and you came back and said this was the first one. Well, it wasn't the first one. Maybe that very first one back in November. In February 23rd, there was a ballot for general operating budget, but I seem to remember that we talked about the library back then, and you were going to close the library if that didn't pass, and that didn't pass. And then the next election, November 2nd, 2010, there were 4 ballot proposals on that, and they all said library. And I have a copy of them here. They all said library millage proposal. So there's 4, and this last one was 5. So I might have been wrong, but 5 of them were for the library. So, but now that we have this windfall that I didn't realize, maybe that'll all go away. We'll get our money back. Thank you.
Next person that's signed up to speak is Ellen Huderich. Ellen?
Good evening, everybody. Lots of folks have talked about the windfall tonight, as if it was something that was hidden and suddenly came out. I'd like to point out that those of us who've been following everything very closely, including the budget discussions, those of us who took time to go to engagement sessions, we also knew, those of us who fought for the library millage knew that money might come. In fact, we hoped it would come. My question tonight is it enough to restore our snow plowing? And I believe it's 38 police officers. It's pushing 40 police officers that we're going to lose if we didn't have this quote-unquote sudden windfall. Did I miss something, or was this in fact discussed last May when you guys talked about putting a library millage on in August? I feel like there is some mistrust being created unfairly on your behalf, on city staff's behalf, and on the behalf of people, or against the people that fought for the library, and on behalf of whom I don't know who gains from it. But this is not new information or unexpected information or information that wasn't discussed throughout the political spectrum. We were praying that some money would come into being. We were praying that we could save our library because we knew if we did not, any money found wasn't going to be put toward the library. It would be put toward maybe restoring some snow plowing, some officers. These basic quality of life services that we have to have first and foremost. So please, if you can take a minute, set the record straight before reporters and media and more politicians create this mistrust about what has gone on. We knew as folks retired, we just didn't know the exact numbers, and you didn't have exact numbers, was what I understood. Now we're getting closer to exact numbers. Please try to save our police officers. Please try to restore our snow plowing. Please take care of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Peter Arvand.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Peter Arvant. I am an attorney and part owner of a law firm by the name of Stark Reagan. We are Troy's oldest continuously operating law firm. 36 years, if I remember correctly, this year, but math was never my strong suit, so let's not pull out the calculators. We're at Crookston Long Lake. starting out just basically across the street from here at Crooks and Big Beaver. But I'm here tonight in my capacity as a member of the Troy Chamber Board of Directors. I know that every meeting we try to have somebody from the board here present as a show of businesses union with community and how important we think that is, and the Troy Chamber certainly keeps its eye out for having a viable and a healthy place for our businesses and for our community. And tonight's item on the agenda that we think is a beautiful manifestation of that is the Troy Transit Center, the potential Troy Transit Facility that the Troy Chamber Board of Directors, on behalf of Michelle Hodges, the President, and the board, supports. We think that this could be a wonderful place for continued growth, a beautiful ability for businesses to make better connections with their employees to get here, for customers, for clients, for community, to have a nice hub here in this area. I know that I visited not too long ago as a member of the board, one of Troy's larger companies, one of their larger Tier 1 suppliers, and I was talking to the person in the HR department, and they said that they were in the process of trying to hire 200 engineers. Now, they're right stone's throw from where I'm standing right now. And they said they're pushing hard to find 200 good, qualified candidates. And I thought, wow, here's 200 new families that can move into Troy that this company wants to attract. They want Troy to be a great place for their families, a great place for these people to work. And we think the Troy Transit Facility might be one other cog in everything that the city of Troy represents, both in terms of its business and in terms of its community and certainly its schools. So the Troy Chamber Board seeks approval and throws its support behind the possibility and approval for the Troy Transit Facility. And wish you all the best this evening. And if you have any questions, certainly the Troy Chamber is here as a resource for the community as well. Thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. That concludes those that signed up to speak. And so we'll move to response to public comment at this time. And I think I'll begin with the item of the discussion which occurred with regard to the money that was saved with regarding the early retirement incentive program and the concessions that all of our employees took. At the time when we instituted both of those programs, we anticipated that there would be savings. We did not know, because it's not required that people take early retirement incentives, and it also was not required that unions open their contract when, especially the police union did not have to do that for 2 more years. And so we did not know the exact numbers. As far as the amount of the savings that did occur, it would not have been enough for the library over a sustained period. It would have been some money for some things. There is a whole list of unmet needs that we have had ongoing for many years in this city. And several things that were mentioned when the ICMA report came out of some departments that we needed to take care of in order to have sustainable units. One of them is the police department, and they recommended that we keep 4 of the officers who were due to be laid off, and that would make it more sustainable. There is an agenda item tonight to do that very thing. The other thing we looked at is the snow plowing to see what we could do about our Troy roads, but also the county roads, because remember, at least half the roads, the major roads in Troy, are county roads. It is their responsibility to take care of those roads. We had a contract with them to assist with the plowing, but they never did pay the full amount. And so the full amount that it cost to do that, there still is money that is taken from our operating budget to do that. That is going to be part of a discussion in our study session item. So for folks to imply that there would have been enough money with the savings to sustain our library, that is not so. The passage of the dedicated millage for 5 years is the amount that is able to save the library over a sustained period. And that's what our citizens asked us to do. They didn't say, just save it for 1 year and let's go through all this over again. Other comments that I'll make with regard several things is there's a report that the city manager sent us just today with regarding the fund balances in other cities. We, as a community, the staff especially, and council, were chastised quite severely last year by members of the community, intimating that we were poorly mismanaged, which was not true. In fact, our decisions to do some things and to make some hard decisions regarding budget things enable us to be in a better position than some of our fellow communities. Farmington Hills is in a very bad shape as far as their fund balance and where they'll be in the next few years with no fund balance. Southfield, Grand Rapids, several others, Royal Oak, they're all in dire straits with regarding monies. And this is due to the drop in values in homes, not because of mismanagement, but some of the communities have not taken the proactive, hard stand that we took. And so we made the right decisions then. We have had excellent suggestions from our staff about what to do. We looked at all those numbers and made some hard decisions. And so I will defend that position completely. Others that would like to comment about public comment?
Mayor?
Councilman Harley.
Just a question about, can you quantify the statement that you made that you said that the $2.6 million would not have been enough to continue library operations? I mean, that may be your opinion, but as far from a quantitative standpoint, how can you justify that?
That amount would have been sufficient perhaps for 1 year, but it would not have been enough money over a sustained period of 5 years.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Holiday?
I think the point is more along, see, I disagree because you do have a continuous $2.6 million stream for the duration of the 3-year budget. The point I would say, and I think the point that this council as a body has been making, is that we have other uses, and we need both. That's what this body has claimed to be the case. And I've agreed with pieces of that, and I've disagreed with pieces of it. But to simply state that $2.6 million wasn't enough is not true, because for a quarter, we used an additional $565,000 of fund balance to pre-fund the library, which is going to be refunded, as we discussed here in the City Council, from the actual levy that's going to occur later this year. So the actual utilization would have been actually less than the $2.6 million. But I think the point that this council has decided is that we have other things that we need to refund that have been cut in the past. And so one of the things is, of course, on the agenda this evening is the 4 positions in the police department in 2014.
Others that want to comment?
Mayor?
Councilman Fleming?
Yes, Mayor. I'd just like to say that I believe there's going to be additional revenue or less expenses than projected so far, because I think we still have some people that are going to take the ERIP that are not reflected yet. We don't know what that number is. What we reflected in the numbers the last council meeting showed the people that have already taken the ERIP. But there are others that if we're not past the deadline yet that are going to be taking that. We don't know what that number is, but I would expect that $2.6 million to grow somewhat. Okay.
Others would like to comment?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
I just think it was interesting that we had 2 members who are running for council who had such different takes on this issue. We had one who spoke about recognition for staff
and it was only through their sacrifice that we reached the financial stability that we have. And then we had the other who said, I don't know why this is suddenly here, without an understanding that we're talking about 5 different contracts that were negotiated over months and months and months, that the EBRIP could not grant it at all until everyone in that unit took those sacrifices. And it was really through those employees and their dedication that we were able to address some of the issues, as we had a member mention tonight, including snow removal, which is a serious safety issue in this community. So we had one candidate for council talking about maybe we should wait out the storm, and another talking about please be aware that there's a storm on the way. And those are the things we need to balance as we look at this. It isn't magic. It really is a lot of hard work. We received notice that there really is no other municipality that has seen 10% give back from all employees. And we do need to recognize and appreciate that sacrifice. Now, our employees did that in part because they knew that the community was sacrificing with the library issue. The people who stood up tonight and talked about being proud to live in this community and know that we are in a tough time right now. It's been 10 years. It is a tough time. And serious decisions do have to take place here, but they're not flippant. Everything has consequences. I know we had someone who talked about the 38. Those 38 are still slated. Of those 38, we may be able to save 4 in the future. So there are very serious consequences to all of this. We know that taxes are capped, despite what we hear, that they're capped, and that in order to live with them, sacrifices are made by all. Certainly members of our community, members of our staff, and for those of us sitting up here making very difficult decisions to ensure our sustainability. Thank you. Just wanted a second thing. I know that the Rotary mentioned their work regarding Patriot Week. And we know that for many years, Mr. Price, on behalf of Rotary, made the Halls of Freedom in many of our schools so that the students every day could see copies of our founding documents and so on. And so we want to appreciate Rotary and, again, Mr. Price for his legacy, which he has in many of our schools today. Thank you.
Anyone else that on council that wants to respond to public comment? Councilwoman Beltramini?
Only from the standpoint, I echo very much what the Mayor Pro Tem said. It wasn't a windfall. It was a gift from our employees when they took those cuts. And I was tickled when I read in the paper yesterday that there's a downriver community that is getting all kinds of kudos for using non-sworn personnel on their dispatch so that they can put sworn personnel on the road. The Troy Police Department has been doing that for years. We do everything with non-sworn personnel that we possibly can so that our sworn officers are out there. And we still, and it's cheaper to do that. It is absolutely cheaper. It is less expensive than sworn officers. So we've already made those cuts, and Councilman Howrylak was exactly right. It is the choice. Do we do it all or do we just do the library? Well, Mrs. Bernardi talked about the dangerous snow. We have to fix that. We have to keep our communities safe. Being safe enough has never been a community value in Troy. Our citizens, businesses, and residents expect to be absolutely safe to the best of our ability for the taxes that they pay. And that's what has to happen. We do have a wealth of needs that have to be filled. It's not the library, and it's not a windfall.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Slater?
That's exactly my position. I think windfall is what a terribly inappropriate spin. We chose 0.7 mil for a reason, and that is because we anticipated concessions in the ERIP program to be used for other items that we needed to bring back. You need to pay attention to what we've said in the past, and that's what we said in the past. So it's not a windfall. Thank you to the employees.
Any others on response to public comment?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman McGinnis?
I would just echo some of the statements that have already been made, but I think in terms of the use of the word windfall, it just makes it seem like it just happened, like you're almost like you're winning the lottery. And I think that when most of us, or probably all of us up here on council, look at finally a little bit of good news, we realize that it's the hard work of everyone on council, management, and the staff, and the citizens of this community that have come forward together to try to get through a difficult time. And so I thought of this as a major success, and that's because of a lot of hard work, not a windfall that is something that kind of just happens by chance. And then the only other comment that I wanted to make was in terms of some of the decisions that we're going to be making tonight, I think it was referred to as hastily running around trying to gobble up money, and all of the things that are on the agenda tonight are items that we have been discussing for months, 6 months at least, on all three of the items that I'm sure are being referred to. A lot of work has gone into figuring out what we can do, what we need to survive in terms of adding back these 4 police officers, which is bare minimum still. So if there's someone that's tuning in for the very first time tonight, I just want to make it very clear that all of the items that are on the agenda are things that we've been working on for months, are things that we've sought professional guidance on to make sure that we're making the right decision, and we've also sought feedback from the community on what they'd like to see. So I just want to make it very clear that if we do, and I hope we do make some decisions tonight, that again that will be the result of a lot of hard work by a lot of people. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Next we have no postponed items. On regular business, there is an item that especially 2 of our young citizens are anxious for us to move to, and that is the confirmation of the appointment of Elaine Bittner as our city clerk. And so I'll move the resolution that states, whereas Elaine Bittner has fulfilled all requirements of the Certified Municipal Clerk Program of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks, and therefore be it resolved that Troy City Council confirms the city manager's appointment of Elaine Bittner as city clerk.
Second.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Hawrylak. Discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Well, I think it is very appropriate that her family is with her tonight, because Elaine really has inherited a kind of less with less kind of numbers, and has just worked really, really well, efficiently, effectively. However, we do recognize that some of the time requires you spending away from your wonderful family here. We've all seen pictures of your beautiful daughters, and know that on the nights that you're here, you've missed a story time or special moments with them. We do appreciate it, and just personally, I'm so excited that you are serving us as clerk, and that you received your certification so quickly. It really does attest to your skill. We appreciate that, and of course your fabulous staff.
Thank you. And I'm sure that Amelia and Nora and Rob are looking for, and your parents are looking forward to our vote. So could we have the vote, Mrs. Bittner?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Hawrylak?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. I suggested to Mrs. Bittner that after the vote, we could take Post-it notes and cover up the acting, and then it'll just tell the new sign. You know, we're always looking at ways to be efficient here. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, we have our a bid waiver, the Casualty and Property Insurance 2-year renewal of the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority for November 2011-12 and November 12-13.
Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman McGinnis?
I move the resolution as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin. Discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
I do see that going for the 2-year renewal actually saves us some additional money. We know that it's a saving to begin, so I think that it's wise to go ahead and do that. And so I'm pleased to see it before us this evening.
The vote, Mrs. Bittner?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Howrelack?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. I-6 is the standard purchasing resolution 8, the Best Value Award Communications Strategy. We have a resolution.
I'll move the resolution, Madam Mayor.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilman McGinnis, that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Fleming.
Yes, I appreciate all the work that the purchasing department has done on this at our direction, but I would like to delay the vote on this until after the new council is seated, because this work is going to continue well into the new year, and I would prefer the new council who's going to be dealing with the results of this actually vote on this resolution. So I would prefer to delay it.
Further discussion of the motion? Vote, Mrs. Bittner?
Councilmember Fleming?
No.
Councilmember Howrelack?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. I-7 is the approval of the MDOT capital contract for the Troy Multimodal Transit Facility, MDOT contract number 2011-0231, project number 113143. I'll move the resolution as printed.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilman Beltramini. Discussion of the motion. The vote, Councilman Fleming.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I know we're under a time crunch here, reading the information that we just received hot off the press, and the timing is such for the public that don't know, because this resolution wasn't read aloud. Basically, if we don't approve this meeting of the council, unless we have a special meeting, we're going to lose the federal grant money, which is about a little over, almost $8.5 million. And this is running really late, where our backs are to the wall to vote on this, because there's a study that was just completed on Friday, and now we're told that if we don't vote favor of this today, we could lose all this federal funding. So I'm just a little concerned about the timing. So I do have some questions. Reading the detail, it indicates we've estimated that the operating cost is going to be about $30,000 a year, and that would be covered by Amtrak fees, taxi fees, et cetera, et cetera. How confident are we in that $30,000 a year? Because I know we've actually had to redesign this transit center and move the platform because Birmingham backed out. So no, a lot of things have been done very hurriedly. How confident are we that we're going to only incur $30,000 or about $2,500 a month in operating expenses?
Mr. Zerling?
Your Honor, and if I may, because this matter really is a total community issue, it's a regional issue, if perhaps Mr. Van Dett, in conjunction with Mr. Miller, could take about 5 minutes and just frame what's going on in the background. In that framing, I think they'll answer your questions. If they don't, we'll be happy to respond to any specific questions thereafter. But I think it would help all of us, as well as the city, for Mr. Van Dett to start with a summary of how we got here and why we're here. Unless Mark
Would it
wants to
be
do it
helpful
instead of
for
Steve.
me to read the resolution as a start? Do you think that's necessary, or do you think the explanation will cover that?
I think that the explanation will cover it.
Pardon?
I think the explanation by Steve Van Dett and Mark Miller will cover it.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I disagree. I would like you to read that resolution,
Well,
if you don't mind,
we can do
before he talks.
Well, we can do both.
Thank you. Do both. It's not going to hurt.
Okay.
Can't give too much information on this issue.
All right. Whereas a 2.41 acre site was deeded to the City of Troy as part of a consent judgment with the condition that it be developed as a transit facility. Whereas the City of Troy received an $8,485,212 federal grant to fund the transit facility project through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, High-Speed Intercity Passenger Rail Program, Federal Rail Administration, secured through a TIGR grant. And whereas the City of Troy received a $1,300,000 federal congressional bus and bus facilities earmarked to fund the project through the Federal Transit Administration, secured by Congressman Gary Peters, and whereas the facility will be served by Amtrak and the Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transportation, SMART, which will utilize the Troy Multimodal Transit Facility as a central hub for their bus network. And whereas the Troy Multimodal Transit Facility complements transit-oriented initiatives throughout Southeast Michigan, including the Woodward Light Rail and the Detroit Regional Aerotropolis projects. And whereas studies show that the investment in public transit yields economic benefit to the surrounding area. And whereas public transportation provides transportation options, allows for mobility of unserved populations, provides congestion mitigation, creates jobs, assists in retaining young talent, and helps regions to be competitive in the global economy. Therefore, be it resolved, the Troy City Council hereby approves MDOT capital contract number 2011-0231 between the City of Troy and the Michigan Department of Transportation for the final design and construction of the Troy Multimodal Transit Facility at an estimated cost to the City of Troy of $0, and authorizes the mayor and the city clerk to execute the documents, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting. That's the resolution.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Van Dett, do you have things to add to that without giving us all the engineering details?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think that summarizes the project. I won't go back to the early history of it since we've been working on this for approximately 3 years. We did get our grant approved by the FRA in 2010, in April, I believe, and since then we've been working on the environmental assessment, and it's taken now about 1.5 years of work to get to this point where our environmental assessment is approved. During that 1.5 years, Birmingham, as you know, dropped out of the project, and we needed to redesign the platform and the station without having a tunnel to Birmingham, without having any property on the Birmingham side. And initially, we wanted to have the platform on the Troy side, and as indicated in the cover letter, that was not possible because of problems with the CN tracks, and the one track that would service the platform on the Troy side is in poor condition and may actually be removed in the future. And so for us to have the platform on the Troy side, it would involve substantial improvement to the track and some switches and so on. So what we ended up with just recently, in fact, is the platform on the Birmingham side with a bridge that connects the Troy side to the Birmingham side. And this concept actually, this plan actually turned out to be about the same cost as the tunnel was. And so we're within the grant amount. We're a little bit under, and that is with a contingency. So we are very pleased at this point it would cost $0 to the City of Troy, and that the grant would cover the entire project, including engineering and construction. We also have a $1.3 million earmark for bus transportation, which we anticipate not having to use. At this point, the costs that we would incur would be operation and maintenance. And getting to Councilman Fleming's question, we have estimated that cost at $30,000. That's based on our operating costs of buildings, other buildings that we maintain, such as City Hall and police, fire stations, and so on and so forth, for such things as elevator maintenance, snow removal, landscape care, electricity, all of the maintenance items that would go into maintaining that facility. We put a cost to and estimated that at $30,000. Now, the offset to that will be through a lease agreement with Amtrak, who will pay an amount to lease space at the facility to operate, to maintain their operations. We don't know at this point exactly what that amount is going to be. We are in the process of negotiating that with them. We have a letter, or we expect to have a letter very shortly, of commitment from Amtrak with regard to the lease agreement that they will negotiate one with us.
Okay. Before you go on, I see Mr. Zerlake signaling, so...
I would just like to add that although the platform is going on the west side, the Birmingham side, the facility will be contained within the Canadian National right-of-way, and so there's no permits required by the City of Birmingham.
Right. So beyond the operation and maintenance costs, which would be offset to some degree by the Amtrak agreement, there would also be vending agreements for either vending machines or vendors who might be on site to provide coffee or sandwiches or what have you. We don't expect that initially. I think that would grow with ridership, and that would depend on the ridership, not only Amtrak, but bus ridership as well, and depends on the activity at the facility. And also taxi and limousine services, which we could negotiate a fee for them to stop at the facility, similar to what the airport, Metro Airport, has with taxi and other services. So the $30,000 operation and maintenance will be offset by a combination of all those fees, and to what extent it would be covered, I can't really say at this time.
Further discussion of the motion as read? Councilman Fleming?
Mr. Miller has a comment.
Oh, Mr. Miller?
Madam Mayor and Council, I just would like to add two quick comments. That first off, this process will allow for the design to go back to the Planning Commission, because we'll have to do final design and amend the site plan, because the site plan previously was the tunnel, and that it would allow, if in the future Birmingham acquired property, a connection to Birmingham.
Okay, further discussion? Councilman Fleming?
Mr. Miller, I really appreciate you confirming this is going back to the Planning Commission. Tonight we're just doing a contract. This will go back to the Planning Commission because they haven't vetted this final design. Is that what you're saying?
Madam Mayor and Council, yes. In fact, when the Planning Commission granted preliminary site plan, there were a number of conditions which were agreed to, which included a design process to have more design input. So the answer is yes, it will go back to the Planning Commission.
Madam Mayor.
But the urgency in voting tonight is because of doing the contract with MDOT in a certain time frame to get things rolling. Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
And we were always aware of that. We were waiting for the environmental assessment. Right. So we knew that for months. This is, although we talked about it just for 3 years on this has been in the makings for more than 10 years. We've been looking at that. So this isn't a surprise. It is interesting that just this week we were able to see Altair and the new buses. And remember that this isn't just a train station, although some people like to call it that. This is multimodal. This same week, we saw that County Executive Brooks Patterson was so pleased to show the green Oakland County Airport. We know that we have a private Troy Airport right here, and we've been talking about the connectivity between not only, as you mentioned, limousine service, taxi service, buses, the train, and that relationship so close to our private airport. So again, this is an attraction. This is a placemaking, job-building piece that we need to look at and we need to act on tonight. And I'm ready for that vote.
Mayor?
Councilman Fleming?
This has gone on so long, I need someone to refresh my memory. I'm sure there have been studies on what the usage, what the projected usage of this is going to be, how many passengers per day. Can anyone remind me that number? Because I forget.
Yes, I can. Currently, there are approximately 20,000 passengers coming and going from the Birmingham station. By 2027, that number is projected to be approximately 51,000 passengers. Also, SEMCOG will operate this transit center as a hub SMART will operate that as a hub, and they will have, on a daily basis, 209 buses coming and going from the site. And those buses will allow transfers from the train station to other hubs or other modes of transportation, such as the light rail system that will be coming down Woodward. Not quite this far initially, but in the future, that is what's planned. So between the bus and the Amtrak passenger service, it will be there will be much activity there. Not so much starting out, but in the future, it should grow with the passenger ridership.
Councilman Fleming?
Another question. If the Planning Commission is going to review this again, is there a chance that they would want to make changes at this late stage, or we have any idea of this? I know you've got the platform's been changed. What confidence do we have this is going to get through the Planning Commission without adding cost?
Madam Mayor and Council, the fact is Planning Commission has granted preliminary site plan approval. They were coming, the process which was identified at the Planning Commission was that when we came back for final design and we had funding for that final design, that the Planning Commission would have some input on the architectural treatments of the building. So I'm very confident that this will go forward and that there is preliminary site plan approval.
Mm-hmm. And it will not cost more.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
Will this require additional police as well to patrol this area? Has any thought been given to that as far as the cost?
It will not require additional police. The site is currently patrolled by the police department, and in addition to that, included in the project is closed circuit or surveillance TV cameras throughout the entire facility. So as far as the facility being manned, we don't anticipate any full-time personnel at the site, but it will be monitored similar to what the police are doing right now. And in addition, as I said, there would be security cameras throughout the facility.
Councilman Fleming?
Yeah. Again, the criticality of us voting tonight is we do have a drop-dead date of what is the 16th?
September 16th.
September the 16th. What's driving that date?
What's driving that date is the end of the fiscal year, which occurs on the last day of September. And the FRA has told us that if the funds are not obligated by the end of the fiscal year, that they could be reallocated to other projects in other parts of the country. That is what's been driving that. And that is something that we have only just been recently been advised of. It was only within the last couple, 2-3 weeks, I think it was, that they told us with such urgency that this needed to be done by October 1st, or it might be lost. And so that's We had always known that time was of the essence, but they had never put a date to it until just a few weeks ago.
Okay. Councilman Fleming.
That concerns me that our back's to the wall here, because we just got the report on Friday saying that we had environmental approval. That's Friday, is that correct? We got the report on Friday. That's when
The environmental, though, we've been working on that for a year and a half, and we have, I think, done 3 rounds of comments and responding to those comments. So that portion of it has been in the works for a long, long time. Everyone knows inside and out what all the details are, and that is really not something that came together just in the last few weeks.
Mayor, I'm aware that we've been working on this environmental and the whole project for years, and I've been behind it 100%. Every meeting and every vote I've been in favor of. It does concern me, and I think we're all caught off guard a bit tonight. I certainly was when I read that we have a drop-dead date of September the 16th, and here we are voting on it September the 12th. And I feel like a gun's been put to our head. We haven't had the final Planning Commission review of this thing, and I just have a concern that we're voting on this. We're not really sure what the expenses are going to be. You probably have a relatively close handle on the expenses are going to be $30,000 a year. Could go up, could go down. But I am concerned that we're having to, our backs against the wall tonight, although we've been working on this for a long time. And I wonder why we are just now learning 4 days before the drop dead date on we're ready to spend $8.5 million of taxpayer money that we've committed to, but now we have to vote tonight, otherwise we lose it in 4 days. Why are we just now finding this out?
I'll respond to that.
Okay.
Because we'll lose the money if we don't vote on it. I mean, I can't be more simple or clear than that. I knew about this with staff and the attorney's office. I think it was brought to my attention 2 weeks ago today. I was not going to lay this item on the table and say, please vote on this today. I was called in on my day off to discuss this matter, and we had September 16th. This has been in the works for almost 10 years now, and again, the governing body has issued statements that they are in favor of this. We have facets of the community that's in favor of this, and a yes vote means you want to have a transit center, and a no vote means you don't. I'll do whatever the majority tells us to do.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Beltramini?
I remember when I served on the SEMCOG Transportation Development Committee, and other communities all of a sudden had lost money. And most of it was federal money, because that is how the feds operate. All of a sudden they say to MDOT, you've scheduled these projects, but you have not obligated the funds. And if you do not obligate the funds, we are not going to send you the money. And some of those communities were not able to act as quickly as we can here. And I don't have a lot of heartburn with this, because it is the contract. We know the finite amount. The Planning Commission has given preliminary approval. We cannot spend more than that. I mean, and I think this council is committed to that. There is no overage in our city budget to cover that. We know that these are the maximum parameters on this project. And if that requires extra solar panels or turbines or whatever to make that work, you guys are going to have to make it work. This says to the feds, we want a transit center. We want to have 21st century transportation options in Troy, and we are willing to go forward with this project. That's what this says.
And I was hopeful that this vote of the contract with MDOT would in fact come to us before now. It's because of the environmental assessment that took so long. And so, we've been anticipating the vote all along. It is just, I think, coincidental that this should come now and the date is the 16th. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
There have been a lot of questions raised about the Planning Commission. Let's please be aware that they came before us with a resolution of support and with the parameters regarding those. They, too, didn't want to spend any more money. Right. And the amount of the money on here, an estimated cost to the city of Troy of $0. So that's what we're voting on.
So I think it's time for the vote because we have a whole lot of other stuff to talk about in our study session.
That's right, we do.
Mayor?
Mrs. Erlang?
Thank you.
And then I'll call on you, Councilman Howard.
Just to extend the comments made by Councilwoman Beltramini, this essentially is a standard MDOT pass-through contract. Section 1 says the purpose is to provide for the final design and construction of the Troy Multimodal Transit Facility as set forth in Attachment A, dated March 8th, 2011.
Right. Councilman Howard?
Yes, what exactly are the Davis-Bacon wages for our city?
You know, I don't have that on the top of my head. I'm sorry.
It's part of the contract. Somebody must know it.
I think when the contract documents are bid, there's a Davis-Bacon requirement, and the contractor, as an
published on
attachment
the
to his
state's
bid
website. You have
document,
a link
indicates
in
what
here,
the
actually.
salaries and wages are of the people in accordance with the Davis-Bacon Act.
It's actually, if you have internet connection, all you have to do is link it. I don't have internet connection. It's pretty standard. We have a lot of federal contracts, don't we? We have.
Yes, we do. And
isn't there somebody in this city who's going to administer it? This is a basic question.
okay, your question to me, I thought, was what are the Davis-Bacon wages in the city of Troy?
Does somebody in this organization know?
that
How are
be
we
for a
supposed to
particular-
administer it
would
if
that
we
be
don't
for a
know?
particular job
It's part of the
classification?
contract that's in front of us this evening.
That contract is not in front of you. This
Actually, it
the
is,
contract
right here on page 54. Excuse me, page 56. Is it more or less than $45?